Hello dear students, I hope you are doing well and are safe and healthy. We are doing chapter number 3, Democracy and Diversity of your book Democratic Politics Part 2. In the last session, we discussed two important aspects of combination of democracy and diversity. We studied how democracy responds to social differences, divisions and inequalities. We looked at the examples of Mexico Olympic story. We saw that different people with different background came together for a similar cause. Next, we studied about how social differences can take various forms. They can take form by birth or by our choice. We studied about overlapping and cross-cutting differences in society that arises because of the diversity we see in our society. In today's class, we will discuss about role of politics in social divisions. We will try to find out how these two affect each other and what are the outcomes. We will also study about factors that cause these outcomes. So, let us begin today's session by asking ourselves, how do these social divisions affect politics? What does politics do to these social divisions? At first sight, it would appear that the combination of politics and social divisions is very dangerous and explosive. Democracy involves competition among various political parties. Their competition tends to divide any society. If they start competing in terms of some existing social divisions, it can make social divisions into political divisions and lead to conflict, violence or even disintegration of a country. This has happened in many countries. Let us see with examples what has been the outcome of combination of politics and social divisions. We shall call them range of outcomes. Let us take the first example of the possible outcome and discuss the case of Northern Ireland. Here, class and religion overlap with each other. Its population is divided into two major sects of Christianity. 53% are Protestants, while 44% are Roman Catholics. If you are Catholic, you are also more likely to be poor, and you may have suffered a history of discrimination because of this. The region has been for many years the site of a violent and bitter ethno-political conflict. The conflict began in the late 1960s and ended with Good Friday Agreement of 1998. Marked by street fighting, sensational bombings, sniper attacks, roadblocks, the confrontation had the characteristics of a civil war. Although the troubles primarily took place in Northern Ireland, at times the violence spilled over into the parts of the Republic of Ireland, England and mainland Europe. The conflict was primarily political and nationalistic, fueled by historical events. A key issue was the constitutional status of Northern Ireland. The Catholics were represented by the nationalist parties who demanded that the Northern Ireland be unified with the Republic of Ireland, a predominantly Catholic country. The Protestants were represented by Unionists who wanted to remain with the UK, which is predominantly Protestant. Hundreds of civilians, militants and security forces were killed in the fight between the Unionists and the Nationalists, and between the security forces of the UK and the Nationalists. It was only in 1998 that the UK government and the Nationalists reached a peace treaty leading to a power-sharing arrangement in the Northern Ireland Assembly, after which the latter suspended their armed struggle. Now, let us look at another possible outcome and discuss and study the case of Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, the story did not have a happy ending. Let us in brief study about the conflict in Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was formed in 1946 by a federation of 6 nominally equal republics: Croatia, Montenegro, Serbia, Slovenia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Macedonia. The varied reasons for the country's breakup ranged from the cultural and religious divisions between the ethnic groups making up the nation to the memories of the World War II atrocities committed by all sides to centrifugal nationalist forces. However, a series of major political events served as the catalyst for exacerbating inherent tensions in the Yugoslav Republic. Political competition along religious ethnic lines led to the disintegration of Yugoslavia into 6 independent countries. You can see the 6 independent nations here in the map. Such examples lead some people to conclude that politics and social divisions must not be allowed to mix. They think that it would be best if there are no social divisions in any country. If social divisions do exist in a country, they must never be expressed in politics. But we know that in real life, such an ideal world is not possible. We must understand that every expression of social division in politics does not lead to such disasters, but it definitely affects voting in most countries, especially in India. We have already seen that social divisions of one kind or another exist in most countries of the world. Wherever they exist, these divisions are reflected in politics. In a democracy, it is only natural that political parties would talk about these divisions, make different promises to different communities, look after due representation of various communities, and make policies to redress the grievances of the disadvantaged communities. We see this in our country in form of various regional or state parties. You will learn more about them in chapter number 6. People from one community tend to prefer some party more than others. In many countries, there are parties that focus on one community only. Yet, all this does not lead to disintegration of the society. So, you might be thinking, what leads to such different outcomes in different countries? Answer to this question is that there are 3 factors that are crucial in deciding the outcome of the politics of social division. First factor is how people perceive their identities. If people see their identities in singular and exclusive terms, it becomes very difficult to accommodate. As long as people in Northern Ireland saw themselves as only Catholic or Protestant, their differences were difficult to reconcile. It is much easier if the people see that their identities are multiple and are complementary with the national identity, as we saw in the case of Belgium. A majority of Belgians now feel that they are as much Belgian as they are Dutch or German speaking. This helps them to stay together. And this we see in the country too. Most people in our country see themselves as having multiple identities. They think of themselves as Indians as well as belonging to a state, a language group, or a social or religious community. Second factor is how political party leaders raise the demands of any community. It is easier to accommodate demands that are within the constitutional framework and are not at the cost of another community. The demand for only Sinhala was at the cost of the interest and identity of the Tamil community in Sri Lanka. Hence, it led to long and brutal civil war. In Yugoslavia, the leaders of the different ethnic communities presented their demands in such a way that these could not be accommodated within a single country, and the country had to disintegrate into 6 independent nations. The third factor is how the government reacts to demands of different groups. As we saw in the examples of Belgium, Belgium ensured that all linguistic groups are duly recognized and accommodated in its system of power sharing to prevent the outbreak of conflict in the society. It not only provided for a community government, but also equal representation to the linguistic groups in the central government. If the rulers are willing to share power and accommodate the reasonable demands of minority community, social divisions become less threatening for the country. But if they try to suppress such a demand in the name of national unity, the end result is often quite the opposite. Such attempts at forced integration often sow the seeds of disintegration. Thus, the assertion of social diversities in a country need not be seen as a source of danger. In a democracy, political expression of social divisions is very normal and can be healthy. This allows various disadvantaged and marginal social groups to express their grievances and get the government to attend to these. Expression of various kinds of social divisions in politics often results in their cancelling one another out and thus reducing their intensity. We can give example of linguistic reorganization of states, where states have been created on the basis of languages like Telugu speaking state of Andhra Pradesh, then Maharashtra, Gujarat, etc. Such a reorganization was initially felt would lead to disintegration of the country and would foster separatism. Rather, it has helped in expanding democracy and reduced the chances of possible conflict and disintegration of society. In India, expression of social division in politics has rather strengthened national unity by giving due respect to diverse groups. This leads to strengthening of a democracy. But this positive attitude towards diversity and a willingness to accommodate is not easy to come by. People who feel marginalized, deprived, and discriminated have to fight against the injustices. Such a fight often takes the democratic path, voicing their demands in a peaceful and constitutional manner and seeking a fair position through elections. Sometimes social differences can take the form of unacceptable level of social inequality and injustice. The struggle against such inequalities sometimes takes the path of violence and defiance of the state power. However, history shows that democracy is the best way to fight for recognition and also to accommodate diversity. Now, let us hear one more story before we conclude the chapter. Ganesh had come back from his trip and was talking to Mahashweta about the Roma people who live in many countries of Eastern Europe. He met Yordanka, who works as a nurse in Bulgaria. This is what she had to say about Roma people. Being a nurse, you can't refuse to look after some people, but these Roma people are very dirty. Even when something small happens to them, the entire family, all the family members and even the neighbors just march to our hospital. And once they are in the hospital, they don't know how to keep quiet. They talk aloud, smoke and drop ashes all over and spit on the wall. They have no patience and they just start pestering out doctors. Anyway, they are just hanging out like that and they look so aggressive. After all, these dark-skinned people don't look like us. They have strange sense of color. Look at their dress. Why can't they try to look like everyone else in the country? And we all know they are thieves. I have heard many people say that these Roma people live by selling their blood. None of them can afford the hospital fees. But when they are ill, they just rush to the hospital at the cost of good Bulgarians who pay their taxes. That sounds familiar, says Mahashweta. Ganesh went on to talk about Mordozeni, a Romani who lives in Romania. When she was 18 years old, she went to the hospital to give birth to her first child. She had no money to pay to the doctors or nurse. Though she was in the hospital, nobody bothered to come and take care of her. Finally, the sweeper, who was also a Romani, helped her give birth to a boy. And then the nurse appeared on the scene and said, "Here we have another criminal." Talking about how the Roman people are treated in public hospitals, she says, "These doctors keep us waiting outside their cabins. On one occasion, one doctor asked me to take a bath if needed to be examined. Of course, I smelled. During the pregnancy, I ate from garbage containers because I was so hungry all the time. My husband had left me. I had 2 children and I was pregnant with the third. The social worker refused my request for food assistance. My neighbor helped me to deliver the baby. I often feel it is better not to visit these hospitals. So here you heard 2 stories, one from the Roma people side and another from the normal common people of the other European countries. Mahashweta heard him out and said, Ganesh, why do you have to travel halfway across the world to find this out? This is not a story about Romania and Bulgaria or about the Roma people. This is as much a story about our own country and about our people who are branded as criminals by our system. Do you think Mahashweta is right in her observation? Do you think we find similar stories everywhere? I am sure you can find such incidents in our country also. Do think about it. Another question that comes in our mind after hearing this story is, should the Bulgarian government try to ensure that the Roma people dress and behave like other people from Bulgaria? Everyone will be same. Why don't you all give it a thought as well? With this, we come to the end of our chapter. In today's session, we discussed the combination of politics and social divisions, and we saw that both affect each other and can lead to positive or negative outcome depending upon how the divisions are handled. It depends upon 3 factors. First, people's perception. Second, role of political leaders. And third, the role of government towards the demand of leaders. It is important to have a positive attitude towards diversity and a willingness to accommodate, and democracy is the best way to fight any issue arising out of them. We have seen throughout the chapter that differences and social divisions are found in all countries, even in the most homogeneous ones. And it is important for these differences to come out in public, and if there is any kind of discrimination, there must be a way for public to express their feelings, as we saw in the Mexican Olympic story. Democracy is the best way to handle such divisions, as it allows room for public expression, debate and discussion. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Now let us end the chapter with the last assignment. First question. What are the 3 important factors in the outcome of politics of social divisions? Second question. Social diversities in a country need not be seen as a source of danger. Discuss. Third question. What were the reasons for conflict in Ireland and how was the problem solved? Fourth question. How is political expression of social divisions in democracy beneficial? I hope you will be able to answer all these questions. Thank you.